Hey, what's happening? It's Nick with Lone Star Boot Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about handmade versus handcrafted cowboy boots. So handmade versus handcrafted, what exactly is the difference? This is a topic that's highly debated, and I think if you ask numerous people, you'd probably get different opinions as to, what goes into either. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's allowed to have their own opinion on everything. But I want to give you my opinion. If you look up the definition of handmade, it is entirely made by hand without machines. But when you're talking boots, 90% of all boots at least use a sewing machine. It would take a year to sit down with a needle and thread and try to sew a cowboy boot. The shaft design is usually intricate. The leather is thick and tough. I just don't see how that's really feasible. A lot of handcrafted boots have laser machines that are computer based that will do the sewing for them. So basically, you would upload a design that was done in a CAD program to the computer, and you would stick a piece of leather in there, and then you sit back and the machine goes and stitches the whole boot shaft. But I still think a lot of handcrafted boots are still using sewing machines for, the construction of the actual boot. Another big difference with a handmade boot, all of the leather is cut by hand. You have an artisan sitting down with a pattern and a blade, and he lays it on top of a piece of leather, and he goes around and he traces that pattern with his blade and cuts out the piece of leather that he's going to sew. A lot of handcrafted boots have machines that will cut the leather. So it's basically like the stitching. You would upload the pattern and then sit back, and the machine goes around and it cuts out the leather. It's a lot like a CNC machine, if you're familiar with that. That's a water jet that's computer based and can cut through wood and metals and things like that. So an aspect, in my opinion, that they both share is that they're hand lasted, which means you take the wood form of a foot, which is the last, and a person actually stretches the leather over that last and then sews it to create the shape of the boot. If that is done by a machine, then to me that's a machine-made boot. Another thing that you can use laser machines for is cutting out the sole, and a lot of factories do that. In my opinion, a handmade boot, you have a person that actually cuts the shape of the sole by hand. But my opinion is a good boot is a good boot. There's pros and cons to both. A handmade boot is really cool because you have a person that sits down and cuts everything by hand, and the only machine they're really using is a sewing machine. The advantage of a handcrafted boot is you're going to get tighter stitching. A lot of times you can do more intricate designs a lot of times. Custom boot makers aside, they can do amazing things with just a sewing machine, things that just blow my mind. But your average boot factory of mass-produced boots is not putting that kind of time into it. A lot of times those custom boots can take a month or more to make one pair. So a good analogy that I heard from a buddy of mine is making a homemade meal. You may use a mixer, you're going to use the stove, you're going to use the oven, which are all machines, but that's still considered homemade, as opposed to a TV dinner that you just pop in the microwave for a few minutes. So to me, it really has to come down to what you're getting and the price you're paying. So leave me a comment down below and let me know your opinion of the difference between handcrafted and handmade, and if you favor one over the other. So if you like this video and you'd like to see more content like this, go ahead and subscribe and click that little bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you down the road.